The Caribbean, sun, sea, freedom. But today, something is changing. The islands that once played by the rules of others are now rewriting them. And the United States, it's getting angry. This is the story of how small nations in the Caribbean are daring to say no, and how America is responding. Welcome to Caribbean Breaks the Rules, and Americans are furious. Over the next 30 minutes, we will uncover 3 major flashpoints: health and labor, travel and tourism, and global power rivalry. We'll visit 2 case studies, Jamaica and Guyana, and we'll ask, is this a rebellion of a region or just a strategic reshuffle? Stay with us. Segment 1, Health and Sovereignty, Jamaica's Cuban doctors. First stop, Jamaica. More than just reggae and rum, this island faces a struggle for control over one of its most vital resources, healthcare. For years, Jamaica has hosted hundreds of medical professionals sent from Cuba. They fill key gaps in the health system. But in 2025, the U.S. government declared parts of this arrangement unacceptable. He threatened visa bans for Jamaican officials tied to the Cuban medical program. The Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness, responded forcefully. The Cuban doctors are legal, vital, and protected by Jamaican labor law. This clash isn't just about doctors, it's about sovereignty. Who decides how a country cares for its people? Who sets the rules? In many Caribbean nations, the shortage of medical workers is real and chronic. Jamaica has leaned on the Cuban program for decades. The US, though, says the larger model resembles exploitation, and that raises the question, are the Caribbean islands being manipulated or simply making their own choices? For Jamaica, the stakes are high. If officials are banned from U.S. visas, diplomatic ties suffer. If the program is shut down, domestic healthcare suffers. And the U.S. message is clear: fall in line or face consequences. Which brings us to the next topic, travel and tourism. Segment 2, Travel, Tourism, and Power Plays. Tourism is the lifeblood of many Caribbean nations. Beaches, resorts, yum of the tropical getaway. But the US holds tremendous leverage. It decides how safe it thinks the destination is. In Jamaica's case, the US has assigned a Level 3 travel advisory. Reconsider travel. That hurt big time. Jamaica's economy depends heavily on US tourists. The government pushed back, arguing crime against tourists is minuscule, that investments in policing and safety have been made. But the US says, we set the rules. We decide the travel warning. You want our tourists? Stay in line. Meanwhile, in Guyana, a different kind of battle is playing out. Oil wealth, China's growing infrastructure footprint, and the US eyeing strategic influence. When Guyana's president said the US would receive preferential treatment, Beijing responded angrily. Travel is one thing, but economic and strategic leverage? That's the deeper game. In Jamaica, the US may hit you with travel warnings. In Guyana, the US may hit you with tariffs or promises of military backing if your neighbor moves in on your land. The Caribbean is in the crosshairs of global strategy, and whether you're a tourist or a president, you're part of the chessboard. Segment 3, Global Power Rivalry and Caribbean Agency. Let's zoom out. This isn't just Jamaica versus America. This isn't just Guyana versus America. It's a larger puzzle. The Caribbean in the middle of a great power struggle. The United States wants to maintain dominance in its backyard. China wants access, investment, infrastructure. Caribbean nations are increasingly saying, we'll deal with both, but we call the shots. For example, China and Guyana celebrated deepening ties, trade growing, hospitals being built, and the US, in response, slapped tariffs on Caribbean exports, argued that investment from China is dangerous, and insisted the region stick to its rules. So what does this mean for the Caribbean? Agency, autonomy, risk, reward. When a small island says no to the US travel advisory, when a young nation says no to US dominance of its oil, when a government welcomes Chinese investment despite Washington's objections, that is the Caribbean rewriting the rules. But here's the tension. The US remains the main economic partner. Tourism, remittances, trade, the islands still rely heavily on America. The shift isn't simple, it's a balancing act. And when you balance, someone always pushes back. That pushback is what we're seeing now. In fact, Caribbean leaders at home are facing criticism. Are you siding with China? Are you giving up your freedom? Meanwhile, the US says, you must follow our lead or we apply consequences. Jamaica says, our doctors, our choices. Guyana says, our oil, our partners. The region says, our future, our rules. And America says, I'm still the big boss. Segment 4. Economic pressure and debt traps. Every time a Caribbean nation stands tall politically, economic pressure follows close behind. Money has always been the quiet weapon, the invisible leash. In 2025, as Jamaica and Guyana resisted certain U.S. policies, financial institutions tightened. Loans slowed, credit terms shifted, debt diplomacy, they call it, where control hides behind interest rates. For decades, the Caribbean's economy has been shaped by outside lenders, the IMF, the World Bank, the U.S. Treasury. Each bailout came with conditions. Privatize this, reduce that, open your markets. When Jamaica signed new deals with China's development banks, Washington noticed, loudly. Critics in Washington said China is trapping them in debt, forgetting that the Caribbean had been trapped in Western debt for decades. Guyana, now rich in oil, is learning the same lesson. The moment a small nation gains wealth, the vultures circle. U.S. corporations want in, China offers easy loans, Europe offers environmental conditions. Everyone wants a piece. And that's where the Caribbean's rebellion becomes costly. Independence isn't free, it's paid in dollars, and sometimes in silence. When a nation says no to Washington, money starts moving elsewhere. Segment 5, The People's Voice, Caribbean Street Reactions. But what do the people think? Beyond the embassies and ministries, beyond the boardrooms and oil fields, the real heartbeat of the Caribbean is here, on the streets. Ask them about the US, and you'll hear two stories. 1. America is opportunity, family, the dream. 2. America controls everything. It never lets us grow. Both are true depending on which side of the shoreline you stand. The Caribbean-American connection runs deep. Millions of citizens live, study, and work in the United States. Remittances feed entire villages. Music, fashion, slang, all flow back and forth. So when Washington tightens a policy or changes a visa rule, the effect isn't political, it's personal. Every time they say travel advisory, my bookings drop. Every time they change a visa law, my family suffers. This is the hidden cost of the geopolitical game, the people paying for policies they never voted for. Yet, despite the frustration, pride is growing. A new generation of Caribbean youth says, we don't need permission anymore. They're creating startups, digital economies, building tourism on their own terms. The people are finding their voice, and the world is finally starting to hear it. Segment 6, The Future. Will the Caribbean finally break free? 50 years ago, the Caribbean's independence movements promised freedom. Freedom from colonial rule, freedom to speak, to decide, to build a destiny that belonged to the islands. But independence, true independence, takes more than a flag or a national anthem. It takes power, economic power, cultural power, digital power. Today, in 2025, a new independence is rising. One not written in constitutions, but coded in data centers, renewable energy grids, and young entrepreneurs building what their parents only dreamed of. Guyana, once overlooked, now holds one of the world's fastest growing economies. Its oil fields beneath the Atlantic may become the backbone of a new Caribbean energy network, one that fuels not just power plants, but possibility. Jamaica's stance on sovereignty could inspire smaller islands to stand firm, not just politically, but economically. Its push toward digital innovation, music exports, and creative industries is reshaping what Caribbean success looks like. And CARICOM, long dismissed as symbolic, is beginning to feel like a true alliance. Imagine a future where the Caribbean trades within itself more than it trades with anyone else, where shared currency, open borders, and joint security turn 14 small nations into one strong voice. But this new era won't come without storms. The United States will still be there, watching, negotiating, warning. China will still invest, but always expect something in return. Europe will still whisper about democracy while guarding its markets. The difference now is that the Caribbean knows the game. For decades, it was played on them. Now, it's being played by them. A new generation is rewriting the rules. They don't see borders, they see connections. They don't wait for aid. They build apps, start podcasts, and grow brands that reach across oceans. They are no longer asking to be recognized. They're demanding it. Climate change, once seen as a curse, is now pushing innovation. Solar islands, coral farming, seaweed energy. The Caribbean could lead the world in resilience. The same oceans that once carried colonizers now carry cables, data, and ideas. The same winds that once brought hurricanes now power the turbines of the future. Maybe this isn't the Caribbean versus America story we thought it was. Maybe it's not even about rebellion anymore. Maybe it's about realization. The moment an island remembers, it never needed permission to shine. Because when a region learns to say no, and still thrive, that's not defiance, that's dignity. For too long, the Caribbean has been told it's too small to matter, too fragile, too dependent, but those who say that forget, small islands can create big waves. The Caribbean broke the rules, not out of anger but out of necessity, because survival in this world requires courage, and if history repeats itself, this could be the beginning of something far greater than politics, a second independence. An independence built not on rebellion, but on respect, not on isolation, but on unity, and not for the approval of others, but for the pride of their people. The Caribbean breaks the rules, and Americans are furious. A 2025 documentary by Adventure Chuckles,